Let's go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Pass the Cheese, please. Today we have Michelle. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. You're in a run of, well, we just broke it up, but you're in a run of people from college radio. So,
Awesome. I saw your one you did with Daniel Cordova, and that was like really fun. You were talking about your cat the whole time. I really enjoyed it.
yeah, we had him, and then I've had Laura, and then I had Tyler, Snack Time. He came later to the radio station.
Okay. I was like, I don't know if I remember Tyler.
Yeah, that's okay. His
Yeah.
DJ name was Snack Time.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard of him, but I don't know if I've ever like actually met him. That's fun.
The lore surrounding him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know. So I guess that answers the question of how do we know each other? We know each other from
Right.
our college radio station. But I'm also like a little bit curious, and this is kind of selfish because you live in LA now with your roommate who was your college radio co-host, right?
Yeah.
And you also went to high school together, right?
Yeah. So we like you said, we went to high school together. We didn't really know each other until like I kind of knew him because I came into the high school during sophomore year. So that's when we met, but we didn't really become friends until I think like junior or senior year. And then we went to college together, and then that's kind of how like that friendship evolved.
Wow. I mean,
yeah.
I think we both started the same time at the radio station as.
I think so too. I think I feel like obviously we had to like go to the meetings to like before being able to go on the air or whatever, but I think that's like also where I met you.
Yeah.
It's like during one of those first meetings.
Yeah. I'll admit I don't quite remember our first interaction.
I don't either.
Okay.
I don't either.
I'm just gonna chalk it up to being a freshman and being nervous about everything all the time.
Right. Same. But I do remember when you got like hired and started working there.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was awesome.
Yeah, that was like wild because I've talked about this both with Daniel and Laura, but it's just like we were all just messing around just for fun. And then like we were like, some of us got paid to mess around for fun.
Right. Which is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how is it? I mean, I wanted to ask, where were you beforehand? Because you were in, there's Ellie, just right in the background. She might be awake for a little bit. She might go back to sleep. Who knows? What was I asking? Oh, you said that you came to the high school sophomore year. Where were you earlier than that?
I used to live in like a different part of town in Sacramento. So I went to Sheldon High School for my first year. Yeah, and then my family moved right next door to the high school that I went to where I met Daniel.
Oh.
So it was like a big change from being driven to school every day to actually having to walk to school.
How was it also?
Which, I mean, it's fine. Like sorry, go ahead.
How was it being one of the people who lives right next to high school?
I mean, it was fine. I think I lived next to a couple of like people that I went to school with, but we weren't friends. So it was like kind of like one of those weird things where like you'd walk home from school, but then like you'd be walking the same way, and it's like, oh, do I stop and talk to you, or do I just keep going and pretend like you're not there? Just high school is just one of those like awkward times, but also life is just awkward in general, and I feel like I still feel that way. So you just never get over the awkwardness.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. So I come from a really small town, and it is in the Bay Area, but like, it is a very small town within the Bay Area. And like I will walk around the town and I'm like, oh, that's where this person lives, and that's where this person lives, and that's where this person lives. And like you just have this whole like story and narrative of who this person is, and then you like walk by their house every time you like go to one of the bars or something, and that's just weird.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. It's like also you feel like a little creepy because in your mind you're like, oh, I know so and so lives there, but I don't know them.
Right.
Yeah.
I also have this thing like going home. It's gotten better now as I've gotten older, but I can't leave my house without running into somebody I know. And then we have this like main street in town, and I can't go there without running into like three people. But I
Oh
will
my
say,
God.
like, it'll be like someone's parents or like somebody's younger or older sibling or whatever. And a lot of the times, like 90% of the time, it's not somebody that you're like upset that you see.
Hmm.
Like you're not like, oh my God, I really don't want to see this person. But you
Right, right.
also, you're not like, oh, I hope I see this person. Like it's just like kind of a neutral. You're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
bye. Oh, okay, bye. You know, that's it.
Yeah. So wait. So where are you now? Are you in the Bay Area now, or are you still in Sacramento?
I'm actually in Minnesota.
Oh,
Yeah.
so why did you move there? I did not know you were in Minnesota. I thought you were
Yeah.
still on the West Coast.
No. Surprise. Yeah, I've been in Minnesota about 5 years now. Um, the short version is I lived in Istanbul for a summer, and as soon as I got back, I was like, I need to move out of California, you know, because
Hmm.
born and raised, you know, and I didn't have a partner. I didn't have like a career that was tying me down. I didn't have any kids. And so I was like, now is the time to do it. And so there was
Hmm.
a friend that I met in Istanbul, and her roommate was, excuse me, was moving out.
Hmm.
And after college, it's really hard to make friends. So
Yes. Yes.
she went to school here or school in Minnesota, and she did what everyone does when they go to school in Minnesota, which is they move to the Twin Cities after that. And so I had a built-in friend group. Yeah, and I visited, I loved it, and moved out a couple months later.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's always nice to like meet someone and then they have like a friend group and you can kind of just join
yeah,
because
like
it's just easier.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I got really lucky in that regard. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely been like an interesting. There are a lot of things that they say about Minnesotans, and I've noticed that a lot of them are true. You know,
Really? Like
yeah,
what?
they say like Minnesotans, like I will say everyone is super nice, but
Hmm.
that's kind of like where it stops. They're not very welcoming. They're not very like warm,
Hmm.
and so they say that Minnesotans, what is it? Minnesotans will give you directions to anywhere except their house.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I've also I've noticed when you're talking with coworkers or like, you know, just kind of people, you know, you're like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" And I should say this is
Hmm.
not during the pandemic because nobody is doing anything this weekend.
Right, right.
um, but you ask, you know, you're like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" And you know, someone from California, I'm like, "Oh, we're having a barbecue. You should stop by." And like they're probably
Hmm.
not going to, but like if they do, great. And if they don't, like that's also okay. But in
Yeah.
Minnesota, it's like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" You're like, "Oh, we're having a barbecue." Okay, cool. Like it's just very much, yeah. I mean, they're kind of no new friends, and
Yeah.
I've had multiple times where people I'm friends with who are native to Minnesota have talked to like somebody else that's like next to me and invited them to something in the conversation, but not invited me. Yeah,
That's weird.
it's such like a bizarre, and you know, like I'm sure that we're all guilty of like doing that like in high school when you don't quite
Yeah.
know everything that's going on. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just been very interesting. Like someone
Yeah.
will be talking in front of me and invite someone to something, but not extend and like I
Yeah.
don't always know the circumstances around it, but it's just like a
Right. Like, hey, I'm like right here too.
yeah, you know, and then well, it's also like don't, don't talk about this in front of me. Like if you're not gonna invite
Right.
me.
Right. No, that actually makes a lot of sense because when I came here, I actually met a good friend who is from Minnesota, and like she's like had some interesting like tendencies, like, and Daniel knows her too, and like there have been times where like we'll come over and she will have like gotten Taco Bell beforehand, like, you know, to like just eat herself, and it's just like one of those things where it's like, oh, like I would have liked some Taco Bell if you'd asked me. Like if you came over and I was going to get Taco Bell like an hour before you came here, like I would ask you, do you want some Taco Bell? And I would get you something. But
Mhm.
like, I mean, like I didn't, you know, feel some type of way about it. It was just like, okay, like so you're just gonna eat Taco Bell in front of us. That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. This is what's happening.
You know, for the like, it's not offensive or like,
Yeah,
you know,
it's just
harmful.
interesting.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, we grew up differently.
Right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And now that you say that, I feel like I didn't think it was a California thing. I thought it was just like a, a people thing. You know what I mean? Like just like how you were taught to like growing up and stuff. But I guess that does make a lot of sense. Like
I mean,
everyone's different everywhere.
yeah, like I can really only compare it to my experience in California,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's just been very interesting. And as somebody who, like, I kind of always want everyone to feel like involved and welcome all the time, because
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't had that exact experience where you feel that
Right.
everyone is
Right.
hanging out without you kind of thing.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so it's just like I can tell that this has not happened to you kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, I guess that kind of is one of our segments, Wine About It. I have two like segments. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it's called Wine About It, and one of them is called Pass the Cheese, where I compliment the guest. And I've been thinking about this for a while, because another thing that I sometimes have trouble with is so many things like that I want to say and I think are a compliment. People don't always take it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that just speaks to what I think is like good. But something like about you, because our relationship has like, we haven't really, like, ever since we left college, like we haven't
Mm-hmm.
regularly been in touch, and it's just been like
Yeah.
really through social media, and sometimes it's like 4 years apart, which is kind
Yeah.
of huge these days. But like every time I either like interact with you or like see something you do, like you are just like a pure true delight. And it always like, I feel like you just like truly are just like so excited and just like so happy to be somewhere, and like you're always having so much fun, and that's really wonderful to see.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of how I am. I like I will say on top of that, like you saying that we haven't talked in a while, we follow each other on Twitter. And like obviously I like see all of your tweets and I think they're just so funny. Like
Thank you.
at some points I feel like you're a stand-up comedian and I just like don't know when your next show is. Like you have like some of the funniest musings ever. It's
Thank
just
you.
so funny to see and like fun to have, pop up on my Twitter when I'm scrolling through. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if you want to see or hear the funny things I do, it's Jack Select. I appreciate that. That's truly what I'm always hoping for. I want people to think that I'm funny, because there are so many people that I look up to in the world, and so many people are so funny in so different ways.
mm-hmm.
That's something that's really like really interesting. And have you also like ever met somebody who wasn't funny?
Yeah,
It's
a couple of
weird.
people. It's really weird, but they think that they're funny and it's like I don't know how to respond to you, like
Yeah.
how to react to the story that you just told. It's kind of just like cool,
Yeah. And I would say
yeah.
I have totally had those instances where I think of something is super funny and people don't. And so it's wonderful to hear at least one person thinks that I'm funny, because I feel like so often people are just like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I told you this the other day, but I've started in the last couple of years, I've started saying this joke to kind of just point out like the white privilege and just like the
Mm-hmm.
bullshit that is this statement. But we
Yeah.
all know at least one person in our life that has made the joke. Oh, or I shouldn't say made the joke, because they have genuinely said this,
Mm-hmm.
but has said something that is racist or hurtful or ignorant, or to
Mm-hmm.
that extent. There is definitely a scale of like what things are, micro and macro aggressions and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But somebody has said something, and some white person has said something, and then, oh, it's okay, I can say that. I have Black friends, or I have my best friend.
Yeah.
And so in the last couple of years, I was just like, well, why didn't I just say, it's okay, I can say that. So my best friends are white. Because like, that's like, what? Why does
Have
someone
you said that to anyone and like they were offended? Like that was a white person and they were offended by that?
the situation to say it hasn't quite come up like, it's not something I'm saying every single week.
Yeah.
Which maybe is my own, fault.
Yeah.
But it is something that people, for the most part, I will say, I can't think about like every single situation. And I want to say it's happened in the last couple of years less than 10 times, it hasn't been a lot. And so I would say like 7 to 8 of those times it has been well received. But I think that every single person, they hear it and just are like, why do I know this? Like,
Right.
it's like an off-brand version, the store brand version of something. You're like, I know that I know what this is supposed to be, but this doesn't look and feel like I recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for the most part, people do think it's funny, but I also think that there are people that don't think it's funny. And it's a really interesting thing. Like there are so many things that we can see and we can sit with, and that's white people not getting their faults pointed out. A lot of them don't find it very funny, whereas other people might.
Yeah. I think the people who do think it's funny are just more aware of everything, right? Like the people who don't think it's funny are just like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. There was recently there was the VP debate, and then there was a lot of white women that were, saying that they could relate to Kamala Harris. And then a lot of people were like, like, this isn't for you kind of thing. And then I should say a lot of white women. And then a lot of white women were very upset about that, and that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of reminds me of, did you see Bill Burr's monologue on SNL? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had never, really like thought about it that way when he was just like, white women hijacked the woke movement. And I was just like, oh, I guess they kind of did, but like, I feel like I have a diverse like group of friends enough to like not notice that really. But then I guess like if you kind of dig into more of like the Twitter space and like Instagram comments and all that stuff, you can kind of see that. And it's like, okay, like I get where he's coming from. Like I would have never noticed that like otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we are all like in this bubble. And I think that a lot of us, like there's a lot of confusion and a lot of like, well, that doesn't apply to me because you're kind of in this bubble, but also a lot of people are unwilling to kind of take that step back and, and yeah, that's something. So growing up in the Bay Area, I definitely had a lot of diversity in my friends in what they looked like and, how they were, how they grew up, that kind of thing, what their household looked like. Sacramento, I would say, was a little less diversity, but there was still diversity, But yeah, moving to Minnesota, there is a significant difference in that diversity. And I have said something to the extent of that, whether I would probably say that it was not quite as gentle as that because I can be a little bit too spicy. I'm working on it.
I mean, sometimes like it just happens, right? Like the passion, like part of you just kind of comes out and you're just like, no, wait a second. Like I have something to say.
Well, yeah. And, like also a lot of times if you tell white people like, man, there's a lot of white people here. They're like, and yeah, and so I've noticed that in Minnesota. And then, it is, as somebody who is definitely like trying to change and get better and, like, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk of, what allyship means and, be it an ongoing thing as opposed to being like, oh, I donated one time to a Black Lives Matter bail fund. Like, great, good job. I did it. Done. Nothing else.
Right.
Like it's been interesting to be like, how can I broaden this? Because it's not like I can go on Facebook and be like, I'm looking for Black friends and I'm looking for Asian friends. Like that's not a thing you can say.
Yeah.
So, it's a quest of mine. How I'm going to accomplish it, I don't totally know, but yeah.
I mean, it takes time.
I'm just going to say I recognize the way that that sounds. I'm aware I'm aware. You don't need to tell me. I'm aware. And not necessarily you, Michelle, but you know, the world around us.
Right. Of course.
Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we head out? We're about 20 minutes.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it did not feel like 20 minutes. So, I don't think so. I don't think I really have anything else to say.
Okay, cool. Well, I have a small question for you because I know that you are a fan of the, how can I say? I try not to give like advertising to like free advertising to things that I don't necessarily like. Well, free advertising, and then like I don't believe in. Like a couple weeks ago, I talked about Rihanna Fenty's lipstick, and I feel totally fine giving Rihanna and Fenty some advertising.
I mean, they have some great things. I love her lip gloss. It's very moisturizing. So I will just say that.
Hot tip. But you are a big fan of the large corporation that has a very famous mouse and has several theme parks both in California and Florida. So if I recall, that's what your radio show was kind of about.
Oh, no, I worked for them. So I worked for their radio station. Yeah. But yeah.
Okay. Well, but you're a big fan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So have you seen that there are protests to try and reopen the parks?
I have, and I actually am one of those, like, I mean, like during these times, yes, I don't think they should reopen at all. But I do remember reading a couple weeks ago that they laid off like a bunch of people who worked in the parks, which like really sucks. I mean, I guess in a sense, like everyone is hurting right now, but also at the same time, like they're like $1 billion company. You know what I mean? Like maybe cut the costs from all of your higher execs and like keep people who need these jobs to, you know what I mean? I mean, everyone needs a job, but at the same time, it's like that kind of like that really sucks. Like a lot of people, like they work so hard to be a part of the magic that you create in this world and to like give happiness to all these people. And yet you're kind of just essentially depriving them of that, like depriving them that like money to like live and like to live their own everyday lives on top of like spreading the magic or whatever the message that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I think that really sucks. And I do think that it sucks that the parks aren't open, but at the same time, it's like you can like recuperate that loss like elsewhere, like in other divisions of your company.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, I don't want to say their name either, but like the other theme parks that like have Harry Potter, like they have it, like, you know what I mean? Like I haven't heard anything about them like laying off their employees there. So it's kind of like you guys make way more money than they do essentially. So what's the issue there?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to feel a little bit more annoyed about it, I heard that they like gave their executives like a huge payday and then laid off a bunch of workers. And so like, yeah, I mean, you know, if your whole company and corporation is about making magic, like that's the exact opposite way to make magic.
Right.
How do you make people feel appreciated?
Yeah.
You appreciate them.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like they bought a new studio essentially, or like they bought a studio that was already existing, but like it's now theirs. And then they released a movie that everyone was very like looking forward to that is no longer coming out into theaters, and they asked everyone to pay $30 for it. And it's like, okay, like you have this money though, and this is something that's like supposed to be very like a big thing for like the Asian community because it's a big movie that they're making that's like a live action, and like they, you know what I mean, like they like hired all these like Asian people and all that stuff. Like it was supposed to be something really great, and then like you're kind of profiting off of that during a very like uncomfortable, like an unfortunate time for everyone else. Like
I mean, I think it's safe to say a lot of people, because like a lot of us feel that we are at the bottom, you know. We are, a lot of us are the 99%, you know?
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of extra. And yeah, and so an additional $30, I mean, that can buy groceries for a week, you know, for like, for one or maybe two people, you know, depending on where you're going, and what you're doing kind of thing. Like, yeah. And so, I mean, it also, like, I know that they have said that they're going to try and like, you know, do do all these kinds of things to be more helpful. But like, if your whole thing is you're like, great, we now have one movie for Asian people, yay! Like, why are you charging everybody for it? Because that, like, what?
Yeah. And I feel like the other thing on top of that too is like that kind of like, since that's like their first big thing, right? That kind of sets the precedent for other movies like in the future. And if people aren't paying for this one, they're like, well, then why should we pay to make another one? Because no one wanted to watch this one. And it's like, no one wanted to watch it because it was $30.
Yeah.
Like if it was coming out in the theaters and there was like a different price, like everywhere is different, right? But if it was like $15 to go see it, like, yeah, I'd pay $15 to go see it. And if I liked it, I'd go see it again.
Well, it's also
like,
it's
yeah,
it's
sorry,
an
go ahead.
experience. No. It's an experience. Like, you're leaving your house, you're going to this thing, you're seeing it with other people. Why am I spending twice as much to sit on my couch to watch it? Like, that's, first of all, like, there are so many people that had to say yes to this decision, and everyone did, and that's just like nuts.
Right. It's like it's like on Arrested Development when Michael wouldn't give Buster a banana and Lucille was just like, how much does a banana cost? $10? Like, no, I think a banana costs like 50 cents.
I mean, like, this time is just really showing like a lot of people's true colors, and a lot of companies like, well, what do you mean? And you touched on something that like I've been very frustrated with like the last few days with, like, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think it's safe to say like a lot of us are watching a lot of, you know, TV shows on various streaming sites. And why does it seem that every single one of these, like, you pay for one thing or you have the free version, and to get no ads or no commercials, you have to pay to get more. And then like with other ones, like then you have to pay to like get the other stuff. Like, it's so annoying and so frustrating, and like you can't go anywhere without being advertised to. And like, I don't know, can't I just like watch something and not, I don't know.
No, I totally get what you're saying. It's like, can't I just like literally scroll through something on the fucking internet? Sorry if they're like, you know, sorry, but like, if like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't just like scroll through a page on the internet and then just not see an ad that's like geared towards me because you read my messages. Like, I don't need to see like clothes or like this toner that I want to buy for like my face or like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be reminded of those things. I already know I need to get something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I already know I'm running low on like cleanser, like I need to get something new, so you don't have to show me anymore. Like, I get it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we already are in the worst season of Black Mirror, so, you know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Well,
I actually cannot watch those.
What was that?
I said I actually can't watch Black Mirror because it's a little too
real.
Too real. Too depressing.
That's fair. Yeah. I tell people, this is a hot tip for everyone watching. I tell people I like to watch Black Mirror because I really like it. I tell people I really like to skip the first episode of the first season because that one is not fun.
Oh no. Wait, what's that one about?
That one has bestiality, and for me in particular, that makes me very uncomfortable. I'm not gonna assume
uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think most people, but there are some people not. But yeah, it's a very uncomfortable watch, and the show itself like is so good, and so that is a strong foot to come out on. And so I want people to like watch the show, and then maybe later, after you're really into it, go back to that. But yeah.
Wow, that's actually very interesting to me because I've been trying to study like how shows start, and, like pilots and stuff like that, and that sounds really crazy. Like, that just, you know what I mean? Like, that sounds insane. I've only seen one episode of Black Mirror, and I understand that like every episode is different, or it's like touching base on like a different part of like society and all that stuff. But like, I didn't know bestiality was like such a huge thing. Like, for you to start off your entire series or your show with that one episode, that sounds terrible.
It's a bold move. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, that is, yeah.
it is also something, and I'm someone who can mostly like binge stuff like pretty regularly. It's
Hmm.
also getting pretty dark, and as I've only been using the natural light, I'm like slowly seeing it going. But really quick, like I can mostly like binge a lot of stuff, but with that show in particular, I can really only do like one or two, and then I have to sit with
Hmm.
it for like a little bit, and then like watch
Yeah.
something a little bit more lighthearted. But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I will say I'm not really crazy about how they're like now trying to tie them all in. I think they were all really
Hmm.
strong in their own, and I think that they all can make sense of like this is a thing that could happen. This is a thing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but like just trying to tie them all in, I feel like it's just too much. It's kind of like what's happening
Yeah.
with this year. Like like too much with this season. Like
Yeah.
you're getting real crazy with these murder hornets and these like uh there's
Right.
jumping worms in Minnesota now. Like
There are jumping worms. I'm never going to Minnesota.
yeah,
I hate bugs, and worms are the worst. I'm never visiting.
yeah, like there's
Sorry, I guess I'll never see you until you like come back to like
yeah,
the West Coast and we're in the same city.
don't worry. I mean, even if I was to come back, I probably wouldn't move to LA where you live. So, there's that.
That's
Well,
fair.
well, we've definitely gone past. So is there anything like that you want to promote? Anything that you want to like bring attention to or anything?
The only thing I would like to bring attention to is to just go out and vote
Yeah,
for the right person.
yeah,
Make a change.
to quote Lacey Mosley from Scam Goddess, leg 2020, because Biden has said, instead of shooting black people like in their chest, you can shoot them in the leg. And so we're
Yeah.
going for something that is better than shooting them in the chest. It's not the best option,
Right.
but here we are.
Right. Death is not an option at all. And
Not an
it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. Bye.